Welcome back to Hey Kentucky here in Harlan. Now, a lot of people, I'm a 13th region guy, but a lot of people when they hear Harlan, they think of the TV show Justified, which was one of my favorite shows when it was on. And I got here a guy, this is Jackie Cornett, who they call Crow. Now, what's interesting about Crow here is that Crow actually helps some of the Justified folks try to make the show as much like Harlan as you could and still wanted to be Hollywood.
Well, it was myself and a number of other people. They contacted me quite a few times. I was in contact with the executive producer, Graham Yost, and a couple of the writers, and then there were some other people in Harlan County that was in contact with some of the other writers. And, you know, they would have questions. They would read things online on the newspaper, in the news, and so on, and then maybe yell at one of us and say, hey, where is this? Did this really happen? How was this portrayed? Or the history of something that maybe they were told about.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, I've always gotten the sense when I've met people from Harlan, some people love it, and some people thought it wasn't a great representation. Have you kind of heard that? There
was no middle of the road. There was the people, the cult following that just loved it, and I was the self-proclaimed #1 fan. Yeah. And I loved it, took it for what it was worth. But there was the people that loved it and the people that hated it. You never found anybody that said, "Well, it's all right." You never found that. I mean, it was.
Did you feel like it was an accurate? I mean, I'm from Middlesboro, and I would laugh at some of the inaccuracies. But I mean, I know they have to do that in Hollywood. Did you feel like it portrayed Harlan well?
Well, the first year they really had some issues. One of the big things was somebody said, Lexington to Harlan's only about 15 minutes.
Yeah, that always annoyed me.
Yeah. But, they kind of tweaked that later on, and they tweaked things as they went on through. They made more contacts as the years went on and got more information and so on. And really, the pilot, the first year, was just basically based on the Elmore Leonard book, Fire in the Hole. And they went from that and some other little things that they'd researched through newspapers and so on like that. But
and you were on it, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
You played a radio DJ.
I played myself. I got to work with Sam Elliott. He was the...
Now, what's he like? He seems like he'd be awesome.
Sam Elliott, I mentioned to you guys earlier, for 15 minutes you would be in awe. After that, you would forget who he is because he's just real. He was just real people. Treated me like I was his son all day long. Checked on me, everything we did. But, that voice when he speaks to you, you hear it on television, but when you're in person and you hear that voice, it just kind of shakes you a little bit. But he was a great guy. They were all great to me.
Now, you told me you had some stories that you kind of imparted. Did any of your stories end up on the air?
Yeah, I had a few. I had some. Some of them I probably shouldn't mention that came from me. But
well, why not? Now, see, this is exactly what we want. Did you have one that people didn't like?
Well, no, but there was some edgy stories. I mean, there was a lot of things going on in Harlan. I guess maybe the 5th and 6th seasons here, as far as some things happening bad.
Maybe some corruption.
Yeah, something along that line. And I would get contacted about that and a little insight there, and they used it from time to time. There was one scene with Sam Elliott with a couple guys in a jail cell that had mentioned a judge at a certain place, and that kind of came from myself and someone else, just some information.
I like how even though this show was on FX and everybody saw it, you're now hiding it. You're like, well, a certain place, like I could go look it up if I wanted to.
Yeah, it was, there was a lot of things. Mainly, it wasn't necessarily that we would tell them stories and they would use those stories. They would hear about the stories, and then they would try to call and confirm and say, hey, is this really where this was? Did this guy really do this? And how's that working and stuff? But as far as portraying Harlan, again, a lot of people didn't like it because they said it looks like everybody's packing a gun. But if you'll walk around a little bit and look,
everybody's packing a gun.
Yeah, there's a lot of rifles hanging up in the back of pickup trucks.
Now, let me say this. All right, so I grew up in Middlesboro. I love the folks in Harlan. It is a different place. A lot of people's only perception watching this, though, is from Justified. Tell people you liked it, but if people who only saw Justified, tell them something about Harlan that is not something they would have seen from Justified.
Well, you didn't see a whole lot of the scenery. This is a beautiful place. These mountains are just gorgeous. You get the full 4 seasons.
Crow, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good to learn a lot of lessons. I want to hear the good stories when we get off here. We'll take a break. Be right back. We're here in Harlan at the Polk Salad Festival. This is Hey Kentucky.